News for the Italian fans, because Francesco is going first with his Yubel deck. Let's see if he can bring this home.
Yeah, you know, all of that meta-analysis we did, Marcello, and it's just the same deck as last time. There was no need for any of it. Here it is, Yubel in the finals once again, staring down not the plant deck, but instead a magical Musketeer deck of all decks. Who would have thought? Apart from Matthew himself, obviously.
Yeah, that's kind of a plant, isn't it, Samsara? No? Okay. But yeah, the real question is, obviously Mathieu deck is full of entrops, but we have mentioned it plenty of times. If there is a deck that really plays through the most, it is Yubel. So it will be an interesting, definitely, matchup.
Yeah, one of the things people were saying about Yubel is weak to those Fuvalos, maybe Shifter, maybe cards like John Lockbird, but you know, it needs one super powerful hand trap to stop it, you know, put a hard stop instead of these little effect negations, which seem to be the way the Fiendsmith decks have been built, to run like one or two, you know, maybe an effect veiler here, a Mourner there, you know, little interruptions, which the Yubel deck just seems to be able to breeze through. So maybe this will be quite tough.
And look at this, once again, that throne stuck to his end. In the interview, he did mention it. And I mean, makes sense. If you make it all the way, you also gotta be lucky sometimes and make the best out of the ends that you're given.
Yeah, here comes the Nightmare Throne and the Nightmare Pain. Super powerful cards. Getting Yubel monsters from the deck into the graveyard. Free materials for the Spirit of Yubel to be summoned. Sorry, the Phantom of Yubel. The Spirit of Yubel gets destroyed, allowing you to summon a regular Yubel from the deck. Then the Nightmare Throne activates, giving you even more copies of Yubel. Just Yubels everywhere at the moment. 4 in play at the moment.
And there comes the first Yama of the match. We've seen that he has preferred Escape instead of Chamber as the trap of preference. We've seen some discussions among players on this topic, but yeah, look at this, wow.
And as we saw in with the packs, with the Matteo playing against Pack, I mean, no hand traps yet so far. Playing 20, so maybe happen again.
Yeah, it's tricky because you can't save your hand traps for the most impactful spot because of that Phantom of Yubel. So either, I mean, you can save like an Infinite Impermanence, but something like an Effect Veiler will always get eaten up by Phantom of Yubel no matter when you use it. The only potential sort of killer combo is a hand trap plus a Nibiru. I don't know if he's running Nibiru though.
Yeah, I thought he was running a couple.
I think two of them. Yeah.
So that could be obviously the best case scenario in this case, where maybe he's holding and really wants to stop the Phantom with a Veiler or something like that, and then use the Nibiru. But it's also a risky game to play. Let's see.
I feel like you have to play it if that's the card you're dealt.
Yeah, of course. But the more you wait, the more you're exposed, because sometimes they can get into double Spirit of Yubel. And also, if they access the Fiendsmith engine, there is the I King Caesar. So, you know, finding the correct timing can be a little tricky.
Yeah, we might be getting ahead of ourselves too. There's nothing to say that Matthew has such cards in his hand. I mean, we can know for sure there's probably no Molchami Fuvalos that he's running, I think, 3 copies of, one of the all-stars of the weekend, though I don't think we've seen it on stream all that much, even though it seems like there were like 3 copies in everyone's deck, there or thereabouts.
Yeah, it really didn't perform on stream, at least this weekend, but it's one of those cards that, as we have mentioned, just shapes up the format, even if you don't draw it. You just have to build your deck in a way that you are able to deal with it.
Yeah, I've always felt like when you play with the new cards, it's difficult to judge them sometimes, because if they don't show up, you can't like judge it, right?
Okay, nope.
Can't say a card's bad just because you never drew it.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, got excited there for a moment because Mathieu was, you know, taking a glimpse at his cards, but that's not quite the case. And here is what I was mentioning. We do see the second Phantom.
A good shuffle. 1 Phantom in attack, 1 in defense, just for good measure.
Switch it up. keep them guessing. And okay, unfortunately it has a pretty short life. This is used to link summon the Enchained.
Yeah. Cannot be used as a fusion material, but of course you can use it freely as a link material. I think it would be a little silly if you could use it as a fusion material. You could just keep summoning it over and over again.
Yeah, and at the same time it's sort of a plus as well, because super polymerization is often an answer, and you can't use it with that.
So yeah, only one Phantom of Yubel, so a combination of Nibiru plus Hand Trap would be very powerful here, but maybe wishful thinking.
Especially because, like, if Mathieu doesn't have anything at all, I mean, it will be very difficult to navigate through this field, you know?
I think he has just passed.
This feels quite light for Yubel.
Yeah.
I feel like this is supposed to be a rank 10 next to all of this.
Yeah, the Garudra is usually the line afterwards, but it seems like Mathieu is indeed going for the Nibiru, maybe.
Does he have it?
I mean, I don't see any other reason for shooting available.
And it is this! Wow!
We were mentioning it before that we haven't seen many Nibirus being activated during this weekend, and what a better chance to see him in action.
Yeah,
on
the crowd
final.
just went wild, as you would expect it. We did call it, but wow, to see it happening and only playing 2 copies of Nibiru, Mathieu must be feeling so good at the moment.
Yeah, I'm amazed to see this. I mean, Francesco still seems to have some cards in his hand. He's still going to get to send away the Nibiru straight away, courtesy of the Desiree. And then he's still got Shavara in his hand, so I'm wondering if he can make use of that somehow. Still got that gruesome Grave Squirmer potentially to summon a Fiend back, so he's by no means out of action. A very strangely kind of sequenced game. Do you think it was just like a bait or something? It felt like a early time to end.
I think it was a middle ground. It was not really a bait, but he probably knew about it. And he was like, this field is good enough if they don't have it. But if they do have it, I leave myself in a position, as we are seeing here, where I can continue comboing off and still end on a Garudra. And yeah, I really like this from Francesco.
But you can't use Garudra, right? Because of the... what's the name? The Link 2? Doesn't that lock you into Fiends once you've used it? Plus the Shavara, like, they're locked into Fiends in many different angles. What can you do? Yeah, you definitely can't make that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like poking through his extra deck. Like maybe he had a plan to follow up afterwards, but there doesn't seem to be all that much you can make. I think it's really hard to use the token because an awful lot of the Link monsters are kind of Fiend specific. Or at least, yeah, Fiend or Effect monster.
Oh, again? Oh, wow.
What is the issue with Moon? Is it 2 Effect monsters?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the nerves are getting to Francesco a little bit. Can't blame it. It's obviously tough to play on stream, even less in the finals of a YCS, on your first YCS.
Is there still a copy of Phantom left, or does he only run the 2 copies? Oh, there's only 2 Phantom Yubel I see in his extra deck, so he's out of those.
Only 2 of them.
Seems to be very flustered by this Nibiru.
Yeah. Kind of trying to improvise at this point, but it seems like this is all.
Not an untidy field by any means, but not the fireworks we are used to from the Yubel deck. So, I mean, we were here saying how difficult it is to hand trap, but Mathieu made it look like easy.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of decks, Nibiru plus an Impermanent Surveiller can be tough, and yeah, Mathieu built, we've mentioned it, built this deck with a lot of these chew-offs, and he's getting rewarded for it at the moment. But can he find some of these magical muskets to fight back?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, his deck's very good at just pushing with these kind of one-card pushes very efficiently into fields like this. Don't know how powerful this negation of the Lotus will be, but other than the Lotus, I suppose there is the escape. But other than that, it feels quite light on interruptions from Francesco. Here comes the Fiendsmith Sank. It's one of the less popular, but still quite powerful Fiendsmith spells, in my opinion, allowing you to summon a token. So it gets you started with a level 1 with a Light Fiend right away. Downside being you can only attack with Light Fiends, but for Matthew's deck, there's basically nothing that isn't a Light Fiend, so not too much of an issue.
Yeah, it's the Fiendsmith Hornet drones, kind of.
Yeah,
Works out
it
pretty
does
well.
a lot itself, you know. Just gets your combo through, and I think the only interaction that Francesco has in and maybe a Draw a Lockbird, if I saw it right.
Here comes the Samsara Lotus, turning the Requiem into an effect that just destroys a Yubel, which means Francesco's going to get to trigger his other effects, the Nightmare Throne and the Yubel itself. Is there a... surely that should be an attack mode. Is there a Yama? No, the Yama's on the field, so one is banished.
And here comes the first musket of the finals. Explaining some of these effects, and once again placing in the same column as the face down from Francesco.
Yeah, that's an escape set from last turn, so
Yeah.
powerful interruption, but somewhat nullified by the Starfire effect. So if you just target it to destroy it, it will just... another one will appear.
And this is what we've been discussing even before, mentioning that when you play a deck like this, it may be, you know, chances are that your opponent doesn't, you know, not all of them.
Ooh.
And, but did Matthew pass?
Oh, that must mean he's drawn the other
I think that's
musket
it.
in his
Yes.
deck. He's only running one extra target for that being the one copy of Calamity, but maybe that's just in his hand. And
Yeah, and a very anticlimactic ending for this turn from Mathieu. Just setting one face down and passing to Francesco, who you can see is quite excited to get back into his place.
yeah, a real back and forth fight here. It felt after that Vela Nibiru that it was kind of going to be easy running for Mathieu, but no, it's completely the opposite direction, just not having enough stuff to push through the interruptions that Francesco was able to set up.
Yeah, he has even recycled the Phantom back to the extra deck, so that's another option later on. And Lacrima, the star of Mathieu deck, right now facing against him.
I'm wondering how easy it is for Yubel to deal the 8,000 damage without opponent's monsters to make yourself. But yeah, the constant shuffling back is going to provide so much extra resources for Francesco. It's what the Fiendsmith deck is supposed to do, but Francesco is the one who gets to do it at the moment.
Yeah, and as you've mentioning, recycling resources over and over again, and this is exactly what's going on here. We send back to Desiree in an attempt to resummon it right away.
Comes. No need for the aerial either when you've already got all of the fiends that you could possibly need.
And I think here Francesco may try his chances to seal this one out, because you know, Mathieu I think is left with one card run, right? So
yeah, I mean, us knowing his deck list can know that it's a magical Musketeer monster, but I mean, do you think Francesco should maybe realize that it must be a magical Musketeer monster? He's not going to play a Starfire with like no other magical Musketeers in his deck. It would be a very weird choice. So maybe he could put that together, that it must be a magical Musketeer card. But I don't know if he knows what kind of cards they could be.
I highly doubt it, if I were honest with you. I guess it's also up to, if you're not familiar with the card, you might think, you know, there are multiple ways that those kind of effects can work. kind of like the Paleozoics, which are chained directly, or like cards that have to resolve in a separate chain. So you know, if you've never seen the deck in action, you have no idea how it functions, and that can totally be the case for Francesco. Wouldn't blame him.
Getting rid of the Requiem there, it looks like.
Yeah. And yes, I mean, after everything, it still gets to push a lot of damage and end on a very respectable field.
Yeah, feels like more interruptions than last time, if I'm honest.
Yes, that's true. And Mathieu, although he was able, as
confirmation there that they can start. Both players very happy already just to be in the final, which is lovely to see.
Passiamo il Charmy in the end from Francesco. But it's probably Fuvolos, I'm assuming, if you're not using it right away.
Yeah, will we see here the strength of the deck? That it's, you know, good into Molchamys. You just have that Fenrir, and then if your opponent's got that Molchamy, good for them, but you just say, okay, I'm just going to pass. I've got 4 hand traps in hand. You know, you come at me. You've just lost a card for nothing.
Sometimes I guess you only need 1 Fenrir to say it in very first turn. So I mean,
yeah, and here comes Lacrima. When do you Fuvolos? What do you think?
I guess you could wait if you wanted to, or you could just do it now.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, I guess you could wait for Requiem maybe, that could, to just guarantee some sort of a draw. But yeah, we are using it now, and this is the question we have been waiting all weekend. Can these decks really perform under Fuvolos? But doesn't seem like Mathieu wants to stop already, and he does now though. So yes, indeed, that is the plan. Just give him a draw and use this Lacrima recursion effect in the next turn and try and grind with the Fenrir. But is that really enough against Yubel?
Yeah, I had a feeling that was the plan, so you have enough so you can send the Fiendsmith in Paradise from your deck to the graveyard with Lacrima on your opponent's turn. I suppose it might be a little greedy just to start sending the Fiendsmith in Paradise straight away. Get to save yourself a draw, but for the time being.
Yeah. We have a Cosmic in the end from Francesco. For now, he has not activated it. What do you think, Tom? Is it right here? Or would you go for it?
I don't know. I'm a bit like...
Okay.
I'm just trying to think what kind of cards you're expecting. Cards like Skill Drain, Anti-Spell are probably your least favorite, but like, what are you holding it for later if you're not going to use it now? So I kind of like just using it straight away.
All right. Yeah, I guess Impermanence is one of the most obvious ones, and then you probably just really want to use it before you commit to an effect, which right now has not been the case yet. But as you can see here, the Fenrir has been used to get rid of the Lurry.
Yeah, this feels like a nice interaction for Fenrir. Oftentimes you have to let your opponent play a little bit, but here it just trades very, very cleanly with that Lurry, because you have to activate the effect to get it on the field in the first place.
For the rest, I do see a Samsara and a Lacrima of his own, so trying to return the favor, but Mathieu might something. No, lets it through.
Yeah, the longer the turn goes on, the more confused I am about like not using the Cosmic.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, what do you expect from your opponent, right? If you set a card, like, there would be an Impermanence or Cold by the Grave, maybe?
I mean, it could be a bluff, but at the end of the day, you know, this isn't like Time Wizard 2010 where you need to hold your cards for maximum value.
Yeah.
The game is likely to be decided by the actions taken on this turn from Francesco, so just going in with the Cosmic seems like the safest approach.
And yeah, I was about to ask, when are we seeing this Requiem in action? And it is gonna be right here.
Now seems as good a time as any.
Okay, so the cards, we are skipping some steps, but essentially we're gonna use both to summon the other, and then we can send the Paradise indeed, which Francesco is taking a peek at.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he just sided down to 1 Lacrima, so maybe he needed to do the chain in that way in order to get the Lacrima back onto the field. I think Francesco's managed to avoid this deck the whole tournament, the Fiendsmith in Paradise deck at least, like a deck running this card.
Could be, honestly. We were mentioning that it was a lot of very good players, but just because I think at least 3 of them, plus Mathieu made it to the top cut, doesn't mean that, you know, 4 out of 2,500 is not exactly a high percentage.
Yeah, they're very well-known players, so I think a lot of players will go around looking up these cards straight away going, oh, maybe I should try this out myself.
For sure. And here comes his own Requiem. Yeah, it seems like a little bit of a weird spot at the moment for Francesco too. And seems like Mathieu pulls the trigger and just goes and activate.
Oh, I was wondering, maybe the same thing as Francesco, actually. So you can only special summon Requiem once per turn, but I don't know if there's any restriction
it's not once per turn. Like, the only once per turn effect outside of special summoning is the one to basically put in the spell and trap zone from the graveyard. But if you have ways to get it on the field without special summoning it, you can actually use it multiple times, which is the case here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's so rare.
Yeah.
To have it on the field at the start of a turn, then maybe you just never encountered the situation before.
Secret defense, as we mentioned. And,
yeah, sometimes.
Secret lack of restriction.
Yeah, right here we are using the Requiem just to get rid of the Engraver. But what is next?
Yeah, no real way to force out the Fiendsmith in Paradise. It's just going to sit in the graveyard until Mathieu wants to use it. Quite a powerful interruption in that sense. It's quite a good interruption, just a special summon monster.
It is really good.
Going to hit the graveyard pretty much.
Yeah, there is not really much you can do about it. Like,
I'm thinking maybe you just have to go for a Yama or something. Because anything else just gets sent away for no value.
so we see walk into the battle phase just to get rid of this Lacrima. But yeah, that's not a good news for Francesco. I King Caesar, but I want to know if he picked up on the card right away, and now he will understand what's going on. Yep. Great interaction indeed. We have seen this plenty of time, but still keeps on convincing me that it's pretty good inclusion in any Fiendsmith deck.
Yeah, that seems a strange make, because it's just going to lose out to the Fenrir regardless, almost, right? Seems like a strange thing to make when your opponent's just got a Fenrir like sat next to you on the field, but I guess you got to make something.
Yeah, and Mathieu in a really good spot here to just return the favor and tie the score 1-1. For now, he's not even using the Fenrir, probably playing around a draw up until now, and makes sense.
Do you think there's a universe where people start playing like more and more copies of Fiendsmith in Paradise in their decks? Say, oh, you know, you couldn't deal with it last turn, I'll just send another one.
Fair enough.
You'd have to have some way of discarding them if you drew them, if you started to play more copies there.
Wow, and I think the end is filled with end traps from Mathieu.
Unlike the players playing the sort of Musketeer Fiendsmith deck, Mathieu is playing a copy of Rise Heart in his main deck. Or in his side deck even.
Side deck,
Yeah. His second main deck.
For him, it actually is, yeah. We have seen a lot of duelists experiment with the side deck lately, making it partly an extension of their extra deck. It has become quite common to side like even 3 extra deck cards, but Mathieu took it a step further, completely dedicating it to an over main deck. Yeah.
And that one copy of Baguska, which is quite entertaining.
I mean, he's the team mascot.
He must side it in for specific matchups. It will be very interesting to know from him where he used it, but I think he just passed back to Francesco.
Yeah, we've mentioned it. This kind of decks, similarly to the other players, not exactly the explosive one, tends to grind a lot and, you know, expire the resources from the opponent. Right now, I think we are doing the same, and we are returning the favor, essentially trying to use this Fenrir, which is not really effective at doing that.
Yeah, from being the most valuable interaction against that Lurie. Oh,
there goes the Cosmic for Leo's happiness. It was indeed the impermanence, which was not used on the Lacrima.
I don't think, did Lacrima even activate?
Yeah, no, I mean last turn when he normal summoned it. Yeah, I guess that was one point in which it could have been used. And now the Paradise is gone. Obviously, we know that there are a lot of Entrops, but technically the only known interaction is this Fenrir right here.
I think you can also be a little suspicious when your opponent passes with the Princess.
Yeah. But it's an interesting pickup, summoning this Phantom of Yubel directly from the end, and now we get to summon, normal summon this Samsara, which was there from last turn.
So do we try and trigger anything now?
Mathieu definitely thinking. I am pretty sure again is, as we can see, gonna try and use the Fenrir.
Going after the Lacrima with the Fenrir. Interesting choice.
Oh, and also
We
the
are
Veiler.
chaining the Veiler, which is gonna get negated.
I'm wondering there, it's always that old adage, I feel like if your opponent has a card that you really need to negate, you kind of really need to deal with, you should just target that card, you know. Just target the Phantom if you really want the Phantom to negate the Fenrir. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, no. I see your point, definitely. And the issue, similarly to the previous game, is that there might be a certain rock hiding that Francesco should be careful about.
Yeah, it's so strange because for a lot of decks, if they've not taken that many actions on their own turn, it normally means the cards in their hand are just not so useful. You know, 3 cards, they probably wouldn't be much if you're playing against like Fire Kings or something. They'd probably just be cards they can't use. But for Mathieu, we know they're likely to be interruptions from the hand, and he's just going to draw another card now with the Princess. Oh, is that Yubel going to miss the timing? One of the ancient pieces of Yu-Gi-Oh! That...
Yeah.
That's really heads up from Mathieu there. Because the Fenrir was Chainlink 2 on the chain after the Spirit of Yubel. So that means the Yubel was not the last thing to happen. And yeah,
Indeed.
This is very
so
old
I think
school.
in the meantime we can go back to us.
So time to resume concentration for Francesco. Can sometimes be a little confusing to keep track of what exactly you were doing just before that happened when the game is interrupted.
And I think we have just picked up a draw of the Princess, as you were saying. Great little interaction there. And wow, that's big. A Ghost Ogre on the Nightmare Pain.
I think that's the biggest cheer for a Ghost Ogre I've heard since casting everyone on Mathieu's team, or at least maybe the French contingent of the crowd. Got to best figure out how to deal with the field that Mathieu's presenting. It's a real challenge playing against this deck. You have to, you know, presumably not going to be able to do everything you want to do. You got to figure out what's most important. How can you play around your opponent's interactions? How can you prevent their follow-up? How can you provide follow-up for yourself?
And is there anything more as this sequence comes down? I think Mathieu is counting. And yeah, he is. There comes the Nibiru as in game 1.
He's going to be having nightmares of this card if he doesn't take the final, Francesco. All these Nibirus.
And only a 2-off, let's remember. But yeah, coming in clutch. Did get more cards out of the field from Mathieu than from Francesco, but it was an important one nonetheless.
Here comes the Phantom once again. Not sure you can afford to negate that, but then again, there's all of the effects, you know, they just keep coming one after another. I'm not sure when is the premium time to use the Phantom, although having said that, he's already used a Phantom this turn, so best he doesn't try and use it again.
Yeah, and this is big. Now after an attempt, it seems like the games are actually quite similar, and the player that seems to be ahead in the end is losing the game. That was the case for Francesco in game 1, and now that is the case for Mathieu, who is managing to get rid of every card from his opponent.
Yeah, this time going directly after the Phantom, no messing around there.
But this looks very, very favorable for Mathieu, who I think really wants to seal this out in his turn. And I mean, you can tell that he has a plan.
One of the more entertaining options is the Gaia Charger, but I'm not sure that was in the... It was in the deck list of the Fiendsmith Kashtira deck, but I don't know if quite enough space for it.
I doubt it
for Mathieu, but it would be quite an entertaining way to end the game with Francesco on 2,600
Pac was playing
life points. Yeah, exactly.
Sure. And yeah, his own sequence gets to resolve. Great news, and still holding into a lot more cards. This is the usual line.
Yeah, here comes the Agnum Day.
And yeah, just completely turboing through.
Did he just attack first with the... Oh, is that Spooky Dogwood? But there is another of the Ghost Sister family that can deal a little bit of burn damage, which there are actually 3 copies of in the deck list for Mathieu, so maybe that could make a little extra difference.
But there is the full loss from Mathieu.
And here it is, as we mentioned. It's one of these cards that meant the Yubel deck went out of favor a little bit, so maybe it will be the thing that makes the difference in this final. I love using it in the standby phase. A lot of players nowadays have been more lax. Maybe use it in the main phase when you're sure you're going to get some value at it. But against the Yubel deck in particular, it's possible their first action could just be to summon a Spirit of Yubel.
Absolutely.
Phantom from the extra deck.
And we see a second full loss, but don't get too excited, because there is actually a pretty cool out in the end from Francesco. That is the Droll and Lockbird. He can actually use that if he wants, and if he can combo through his own in a way, and maybe that can be the case. But look at this.
Wow. Also the impermanence being activated from Mathieu.
How well can he can't
this.
use the Droll and Lockbird in this situation because he's already sort of past priority, if you like, by letting the impermanence resolve. So maybe he's just going to have to pass. I can't really see. You can't keep giving your opponent 2 extra draws each time you summon a card, no?
Yeah, I guess the window was indeed for go, and yeah, it's rough. I totally agree with you, but he is continuing.
Do you know what I saw from Mathieu's end? Another one. Look at this.
I mean, this is being quite the journey. We have mentioned all weekend long that we were waiting for this Fuwalos and that it didn't really show up. Well, 2 copies in the opening from Mathieu. And now the Droll comes down. Seems like a bit too late here. But
yeah, it's really stolen the show here after all of this. I mean, they've drawn 2 cards each. So they're both kind of +1 for Mathieu. So he's not going to have all the cards in the world, but it's still a good number. He's still going to have, you know, 6 cards in his hand at the moment, I think, and he's still forced out a Droll and Lockbird from Francesco. So let's see how well he can combo off under his own Droll and Lockbird at this point. The crowd really not sure how to react anymore. They were super enjoying the flood of hand traps coming down from Mathieu just a moment ago. Let's see how this Droll Lockbird pans out. It's often surprising how much the deck can do.
But that's it, apparently. I think even though he went for the Droll and Lock, it seems to me that he just passed turn after setting 1.
But he's thinking, you know what it means?
Yeah, we all know what that means. There might be a rock paired with another interruption to even close this one out. But no, Mathieu draws and is now holding 7 cards.
Wow,
or
those
6 maybe.
Fuwalos
6.
put in so much work.
Let's see, the tension is there. 6 minutes remain to crown our YCS champion.
It's that beautiful lurry. Yeah, amazing to see, isn't it? We've been talking about Fuvolas not coming up this weekend, and then 2 copies there, just absolutely stealing the show.
And the Phantom is used to negate the Requiem. Can make sense here, I would say, but is that gonna be the last line of defense? And there is an engraver.
Yeah, this I like because already running 3 copies of Tracked, it's nice to have a different target for the engraver. And there it is in the form of Fiendsmith's Sanct.
Yeah, but we have already special summoned the Requiem, so we are gonna have to change things up with this Sanct.
More than happy to do so. Here comes Engraver. Can use the effect of Requiem in the graveyard. Start going after some of the monsters, and it sends rather than destroying, so no issue there with destroying Yubel cards. Interesting choice to go after the Yama first.
Definitely an interesting one, but now we see yet another Musketeer coming in the same column. And let's see if this link, the first time it has been summoned in the final, but what a card it is.
Yeah, it's a card you need to be very wary of, and if it's going to resolve, it's going to summon 2 level 4 monsters from the deck, so it's absolutely not allowed to resolve.
It does not resolve indeed, as there has been an infinite impermanence, but Mathieu needs to figure out quickly how to proceed.
Yeah, on the other hand, it's kind of done the job, you know, it's just for 1 card, it's forced out an infinite impermanence and then giving you a Light Fiend, which Light Fiends are the way forwards at the moment, or in fact any kind of Fiend to summon a Yama. He's running his own little Unchained package. Anything you can do, I can do better.
Time is what I'm worried about, as there are less than 4 minutes remaining. And now we take a read at this.
Just wants to be sure that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know how many of the finals as of lately we have seen lost at the end just for something like this. I remember at the European Championship with the Rika deck, and even later on, you know, these kind of effects can be tricky. So
yeah, it's one of those effects you really don't want to mess around with, especially when time is low, and that damage can be super important. Even if you have 10 more cards than your opponent, if your life points are lower than theirs, when that time ticks down to 0, you could very well lose the game.
And with 3 minutes remaining on the round here, Mathieu is speeding things up, and let's see how this turns out. But we're seeing once again one of the MVP of the weekend, the Agnum Day.
Yeah, this isn't a card, I must admit, when I read, thought was going to be one of the most impactful cards of the Fiendsmith engine. Instead, I mean, the Lacrima is clearly the star at the minute, but it's still very valuable, allowing you to get the Desiree into the graveyard to get its effect off, and then boosting the attack. Is he going to even be able to do any damage this
that's what
turn?
I was wondering about as well.
Yeah, he's going to negate the Yubel, but there may be a Terror Incarnate in the deck. I don't know if the Yubel gets its effect, though, when it's destroyed by battle. Maybe that's what Mathieu was reading.
Yeah, because we do have that Shervara, but the Yama is there. So it's going to be an interesting spot here for sure.
Yeah, is Mathieu safe? He's got not 1 but 2 copies of Nibiru. His only 2 copies of Nibiru.
Yeah. They've been there the entire match. Drew into Nibiru every single time, but is he gonna go for this? Yes. Wow.
Okay.
Gonna go for Shervara right here. And then use the Yama. 2 minutes remain.
Yeah, I love this, actually, because, you know, Lacrima in the graveyard doesn't have to summon a Requiem. It can summon an Agnum Day, maybe.
Yes, but that's it. He has passed, and now it all comes down to this. There is not enough time to play all of this out, so we are gonna have to figure out if one of these two can deal some damage in this turn.
Yeah, honestly, when it comes to dealing damage, there's only one thing that we're thinking about here is the Nightmare Pain. I'm not 100% sure that life point counter that we're currently showing for Francesco is correct. I don't think he's taken any damage this game.
I don't think so.
Maybe just a little display error, but hopefully that can be corrected soon, unless we've got something wrong on our caster side. But I think the life points are still tied at 8,000. We can see Francesco moving at a very frantic pace here just to get that, see if he can get some damage in. Very threatening here just to enter the battle phase, deal some damage. Here comes the Grave Squirmer to destroy Yubel. Matthew got to figure out what he can do. That Spirit, though, oh, is he going to summon too many monsters in his haste and go into this Nibiru once again? It's very difficult to play around it in a situation like this. You've got to deal with all of your opponent's interruptions.
Yeah, at the same time, though, these are not really 30 seconds because there is no draw, and as we will hopefully update soon, they're both on 8,000 because the way it works in Top Cut is that if time is called, you would continue up until the end of the turn if you're tied in terms of lives.
Yeah, so that means, but if he's behind in life, he's only got until the end of the phase.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just gonna. Oh, does it have piercing damage? Perhaps one of the Fiendsmith monsters that we missed out on.
Yeah, I would guess so, because the life points have been.